Hey guys, welcome back to the Shooters Only Paintball Podcast. I am your host, Jordan Hernandez, and I have a very special episode for you today as my dog is attacking me in frame right now. No big deal, right? Keep it moving, keep it rolling. This is episode 0. This is actually, you did click it correct. This is episode 0 of the Shooters Only Paintball Podcast. I know we are now 6 episodes deep with this one, but I wanted to give you guys the origin story of Red Creek Paintball. It is a story that I love telling. I don't think I've told it complete to probably any one paintballer in the community, so this should be news to most of you. So before we get into that and that story, I wanted to first bring to your attention, we do have a website now available to you to get your paintball products, shootersonly.us. Moose is not available on the site, but check that out. That supports the field, it supports the podcast, it supports a lot of things that we do out here, and also an avenue to you as a paintballer, a way to get goods and keep your money local. So check that site out. It's directly involved with us at Red Creek, okay? Also, thank you for those that have shared the podcast and have pushed it around. I love seeing the numbers go up every week, so thank you for doing that. It's a lot of motivation to keep this thing going. I've got a long journey ahead of me and a lot of interviews to still do, but it is exciting to see it getting some notice already, so thank you. Moose is going to do this with me. Here is the story of Red Creek Paintball. To understand Red Creek, you have to understand that Red Creek was not even Red Creek to begin with. Frontline XP was the original paintball dream, the original idea, the original business plan that was supposed to disrupt this Salt Lake Valley and create us a ton of money as well as a awesome paintball experience for the community out here. Let me tell you a little bit about what that looks like. So Frontline XP was a business plan that I sold to all my friends. I just got out of high school, right? I was exposed to paintball in high school. It was fun. It was cool. It was different. Had a great time playing out in the woods and stuff with my buddies, but it was just us. I wasn't even connected to the paintball group at the time. So we were just a few guys out in the woods playing probably in illegal canyons and stuff like that, much like probably some of you. And we had a great time. So I go down to Dixie State College for a semester. I try to walk on at football. I didn't really pursue that as hard as I probably should have. Never even really made it onto the field over some really stupid discussions with the coach. But regardless, did not play football at the next level. In high school, the reason why that was important is I was really thinking I would play at the next level. I heard it from multiple sources and multiple people that I would. It just never kind of came to fruition. I relied a lot on what I was told and did not know kind of the actions to take to get to that next level. So, I don't really blame anyone but myself. There was a lot of things that kind of changed and altered my path, and I don't regret it today. I think I'm very happy and left at peace with where football ended in my life, and now I'm on to other things. So what's important for that is that was kind of what I was going to do next after high school. That was the path I was going to take. When those scholarships didn't come rolling in and those things weren't laid out in front of me, all of a sudden I had to change, right? So that spirit, that burning desire to do something and be successful in life ended up being a business plan for Frontline XP. Frontline XP was more catered towards the customer that was just coming off of, video games, or someone that did not know paintball completely or entirely at the time. And it was trying to bridge the gap between real life and video games, which you would probably know that as, hey, there's kind of that gap right now. It was VR, and VR at the time was still relevant and was just coming out. We felt, though, utilizing the paintball markers, which was MagFed at the time, which was, pretty new and pretty groundbreaking, utilize those markers and create an experience that was like the video game experience, something that we could keep track of your KD, your win-loss ratio. You'd have some sort of profile, but instead of, you'd be actually in person and playing those things and playing those games. So that was the original intent and original idea. And some of you paintball producers or owners that know the inside of the sport would laugh at this. I drew up the business plan based off of time of entry. not paint. So kind of like the laser tag model, right? They set you up and then you get one game. Okay, you get one game, you go out there, you go play. If you buy a second game, you buy a third game, whatever the case may be. So I used the laser tag model, and it never got off running, so I can't say it was completely trash, but it was a very different take on the paintball field as a whole, right? It was more, let's create the Call of Duty experience one for one, opposed to let's create a paintball field and incorporate some MagFed capabilities and stuff like that. So that was kind of the difference, right? That was the transition. So Frontline XP falls flat on its face pretty early on. I gathered all my buddies that fortunately still help me today and still very much involved in Red Creek and in my life personally. So thank you to them that have gotten me to this point. I'll mention them for sure before the end of this. But they were sold an idea and a dream that we wouldn't have to work another day in our lives. We would actually be contributing to a business that could pay all of our bills and provide us a path to success, right? And we were young. I was 19 at the time when I told them this. I just dropped out of college and said, hey, I want to be successful. I still want to do this. How can I incorporate my buddies into trying to get this business off the ground? So we would meet every week and discuss paintball topics, paintball knowledge, paintball business, paintball this. And it was so much fun getting those things going. But what I did find is I was kind of leading that charge. I was leading that conversation and providing most of the content in those meetings. Not to say they didn't do anything. They more so were focused on like, all right, get this going, Jordan. Like I'd be happy to be an employee. I'd be happy to do this. And it wasn't really matched with that same passion. So that's important to notice, because as this thing evolves and grows, it does kind of become more of a more synchronized one dream, one idea, not relying on others to create that for you. So entrepreneur, this is an entrepreneur podcast, but I think it's always nice when you could bring things back into your wheelhouse and you get to control your destiny as to what you do. So Frontline XP actually was presented to two people that did not know that they were investors at the time. They just had money and they had businesses, and I knew them through mutual contacts. So I gave them a business pitch, a pitch for a business. It was Frontline XP, had a nice little PowerPoint. I'd love to find that and show you a couple slides of that. And it does not go well, and maybe they didn't know they were investors at the time, but I pitched it to them and tried to get their feedback, and they gave me some feedback, and they weren't really interested. They were like, good luck, you know what I mean? It's gonna take a lot of money. So after those two appointments, I come back to ground and I'm like, okay, I need that Topgolf money. It's probably not going to happen. I'm 19 years old, have no assets, no money to really create this. I just have a dream and an idea. So I then meet with all our guys and I said, hey, it didn't go well. It's not good. How do we shrink this idea to the very basis of what it is? And how do we break it all the way down? And we come up with the idea to host these small private games, which is just rental stuff, kind of equivalent to people renting gear off of KSL and going and playing. The only difference is you're renting from me and you're meeting me at these locations, and we would kind of conduct this game. So it's funny, our very first rental group was actually all my friends of friends, so my wife's friends, and we got everyone out. We played. I think we had like 15 people. We were out at the old Desert Edge field, who we got permission to use, but not necessarily conduct a full-on business, which we jumped through some loopholes to do that. We also have a lot of interesting stories with the mountain biker community out there. If you've played at Desert Edge, you might have ran into those people. A very, very interesting group. So regardless, we host 3 events, and they were good, but we were buying our paint at retail. Shout out to Chris at Paintball Addicts. He actually hooked me up for my first wholesale deal directly through him. I didn't set up directly through a vendor. So, it wasn't a lot of money. And we kind of came to terms and came to grips. I did, for the most part. This was passion fueled business plan. And I came to terms with it. I said, hey guys, there's not a lot of money in this, number one. Number two, we're so far away from that Topgolf money that we need to start the dream and the idea correctly. I don't really foresee us doing this. Wow, there we go. How about that? Buzzer beater. So now we move into disbanding the business. I say, okay, let's all go our separate ways. We're still buddies. We're still friends. Everyone gets their portion of what they put into the business, and we move along. In the meantime, I still have that burning desire, right? This is still driven off of what I what I believed at the time was a football failure of me. I said, hey, I still want to go be successful. I don't want to go back to college. I don't know what I want to do. I just want to start a business. So I pick up the camera and I say, hey, I know my way around the camera. Let me start filming weddings, of all things. I thought I was going to be a wedding videographer. I grabbed my buddy Ethan and I say, hey, let's go film weddings. And I sign up for Thumbtack leads and I get all these wedding inquiries. But I also set up photo booth inquiries. And I was getting photo booth inquiries 10-1 at the time, but we were just focused on wedding videography, right? So we won about 3 bids and all 3 weddings went well. What I found out though is that I did not enjoy wedding editing. I did not enjoy shooting weddings. I did not enjoy the pressure of having the camera on me and filming someone's big day. Ethan could probably say the same thing. I think we shared that same idea. There was money in it, but I didn't really want to make a career out of it. So we both stepped away from that and said, okay, we're done with this. What's the next, right? Again, that burning desire and that passion to still create something. I started a photo booth business with my wife. She goes in with me, and it's kind of out of her character to take a huge risk like that, but she saw the potential, and we both went in and did that. And it was really nice to kind of have that 50-50, feels really good type of business relationship. And we were able to push that thing along and be very successful with it. The photo booth is imperative to the whole story here because that was the first time I felt like I succeeded in business. I really handed the reins to her almost completely on a lot of the design and the management side of it, but she could say the same thing and say, I was probably pretty important in getting things going in terms of sales and connecting with clients and keeping things rolling. It went really well, and we still have the photo booth business today, and I think that's something that we could scale and move along. But that was the first time I really felt successful. You know what I mean? We actually made money for the first time on a business venture. So all of the time, I have a full-time job. She has a full-time job, and we're filling up our weekends with photo booths. During this time, we bought a townhome that was worth $150,000 at the time, and that money today is nowhere near of where the housing market is today. But the reason why we got lucky and we bought that, it actually created the equity that eventually funded the loan that took us out to Red Creek. So it was really good. It was really good to get in the market. I'm a big advocate for all my friends and people of my age or even younger. Go use your FHA loan and go get into something right away because there's a lot of money to be made in the Utah housing market right now, as you probably know. But that's actually what provided that dream. I actually sold my wife at the time where we were in the middle of planning our actual wedding, which she's going to give me a lot of crap for because she did a lot of the planning, majority her, and I tried to help where I could, and the whole time I had this idea where I'm like, man, I want to create this paintball field. So I know it kind of conflicted in some of the big life events that we had going on at the time. And I owe her a lot of patience and getting us to where we are today. So I convinced her. I said, hey, got a little bit of equity in here. Instead of going and buying something that's going to depreciate and not be able to use or put back into the house, let's go buy a piece of property. I think this paintball business idea can be done, and I think I have the ability to do it now. So over the course of 3 or 4 months, she warms up to the idea. She says, hey, let's do it. But I don't want to do it alone. I want to be able to have some stability from someone else to where we can rely off that because we're in the midst of planning a very expensive wedding and other things coming up in terms of bills and stuff like that. So we could do it, but on these terms. So I approached my mom and my stepdad, Ken, at the time, and I say, hey, let's go create this dream and idea. And they knew about this idea the whole time. They knew I played paintball on the weekends. They knew the basis of what I wanted to do, even Ken more so because he was in the involvement of Frontline XP days. So he knew what was out there. And I said, hey, Ken, let's do this big game experience once or twice a year type thing. And we'll have our own field and we'll get a play on it and stuff. So he's like, yeah, let's do this. So convince them that, hey, let's get the piece of property to have it in our family and give us a place for recreation because we enjoy that, but now also create a business out of it to offset it a little bit, right? Not necessarily to get rich. Everyone knows we're not getting rich. So we go and start looking for properties, and this is snow's just starting to melt. It's probably around the February, March type thing and barely accessible for us. And we go and we shop, and we start shopping in Fruitland, of all places. Starvation. You're going to see that a lot if you're looking for land. There's not many places that are really inexpensive within the Salt Lake Valley, nor is it inexpensive within an hour or two. And I knew from experience from Frontline XP that I wasn't going to really capture a great lease locally. And instead of trying to start something locally, I was like, I really want my own sandbox. I don't want someone to say, hey, you can't, delete this tree or dig this hole. I wanted my own parameters. So we started looking at land, and took us out to Fruitland. We looked at it 2 or 3 different properties, stuff that could probably host it. But looking back, hindsight, probably wasn't the best. They were 10-acre plots for around 20 grand. And the HELOC kind of gave us about a $5,000 buffer to still kind of do some paintball infrastructure, but not quite to really figure out our own air. So we were kind of in this weird middle ground to where it's like, okay, we barely got enough to do this, and these plots of land aren't that great. So we were really close to actually calling off the whole land search because prices were rising as snow was melting, and preparing for summer, and people were willing to spend more, and there was more attraction on buying land out there for recreation purposes. So we kind of backed up a little bit right there, and we stopped going out to Starvation. We actually heard through the grapevine, my mom's coworker, Mike, thank you so much. I owe you a big appreciation here. Mike actually contacts my mom and says, hey, yeah, we've got some property out there. We would be entertained. We could sell it, possibly if everything lines up. And we go meet with him, and I say, hey, where is this thing? You know what I mean? We've been out to Fruitland a few times now. Now we kind of know. He's like, it's a ways off a dirt road. It's a ways back there, but it's 55 acres. It's this, and this. And I'm like, man, 55 acres. We've been looking at 10-acre plots. So we know that this is going to be expensive. So we still decide to look at it, and we're like, all right, just go check it out. So we all take a trip out there, and we go walk it for the first time. We find it through GPS, through turns and a pin, and we made it work. So we looked at the piece of property, and we were just jaws dropped, mouths were salivating. You know what I mean? Me and my stepdad are just in awe of like, this is it. This is going to be it. Like, it's so exciting, and it's fun because I know many of you paintballers haven't even really seen the entirety of the property, but 55 acres is rather large. I would say to argue maybe there's about 10 acres that's completely unusable on the bottom side of the property because it's complete hill and trench. It's awesome. We walk it for the first time. We see everything in its natural growth, and it's just like, man, this is way different. Like, this is way different than what we've seen. Let's make this work. Let's make this happen. And I know in my head, it's just like, this guy's going to want a pretty penny for it. So the best I can do is offer him offer to buy a portion and see if he either finance the other half or see if he wants to remain an owner on the other end. So I say, hey, Mike, just walk the land. It's awesome, dude. We want it. We want to do this deal. Is there a way that I can purchase 20 acres from you and give you 20 grand for it? He says, Jordan, I'm not really interested in subdividing. I really want you to purchase the whole thing. I don't want to have any ties to it. I got other properties that I manage and take care of. And he said, all right, what are you thinking? And he said, could you do 30 grand for all 55? And I'm like, yeah, we can do 30 grand for all 55. At the time, we were only approved for 25 grand. That's all I had. But I'm like, yeah, of course we're going to do that. Any one of you would be like, yeah, we're going to do that right away. And if any of you try to buy this from me later on, I'm not going to give you the same deal, okay? Like, cut me a break. I got lucky here. Our family got lucky. This was awesome to kind of see this dream come to fruition. And here we are, right? So, yeah, I call everyone up and I say, hey, he's going to do $30K for all of it. And he's like, well, we don't have $30K. How are we going to do that? I'm like, well, I got him to do a $5K promissory note, and we figure it out later and give him 25 up front. Any of you that know business or getting a business off the ground, spending all your money on the land and the property doesn't necessarily give you a business, especially when you have to build the infrastructure that's around it. I knew in my head, I was like, man, we could just go out here and play behind the trees if we have to. But we kind of we blew everything in the beginning just to get the property, right? So we get the property in our name, and we don't have any money left over. So here I am, like, very excited that we have this piece, and now trying to connect the dots. I have a good paying job and day job wise, but more importantly, I have good connections. So I was getting a lot of building products that weren't really building products, but more leftover shipping products to convert into bunkers and buildings. So as you know, if you've been out to the field, there's some, pretty janky buildings out there still, but hey, they serve pretty well for stopping a paintball. So we start hauling all these things out. And again, no money and didn't even have a trailer to haul things out. So shout out to Jared Murdoch, who was a coworker and still my coworker right now. He let me lend his converted snowmobile trailer. So we hauled we hauled loads out there 14 feet at a time behind a 96 truck that was on its last leg, that was dying. And we were toting them 2 hours out and 2 hours back to make this field become a reality, this dream become a reality, right? So it was good. I love the grind. I love the idea of getting out there. A lot of the trips were me and Ken. For a while there was me, my mom, and Ken, and my wife, and I had a lot of support from my friends from the Frontline XP days. They knew that, they weren't necessarily vested in this dream. They knew that this was always a dream of mine. So for them to come out and assist in that, that's awesome. And I have some footage here that was actually right before we started putting bunkers up. So I wish I had the footage from earlier. I know I had the walk around footage, but this footage was pretty cool to kind of see. Hopefully we can give you some visuals here. So here it is. Here's our dream. We begin to set up the infrastructure. I make an announcement that does really well on Facebook that says, hey, Utah community, new field. All while there was the Dollar Ridge fire going on, burning just tens of miles away from me. It was relatively close, and here it is. Our dream could be over before it even began due to a fire, but we got lucky. We got lucky that we avoided that, and I think it's kind of part of the destiny of Red Creek. So to look back, I don't know if I would have called Red Creek because there is other creeks in this Utah community, but it was one of the turnoff signs at the roads. We're like, we can work that out and get that going. So Red Creek Paintball was donned the name. It was almost Deadwood Paintball. It was almost Fort Mar. There was a lot of different names that were thrown out there, but really happy that we decided on Red Creek and what it's become today. So, that's the creation of the field. That's the finding of the field. A lot of blood, sweat, and maybe even some tears at time kind of went into it. To get things going. It was not logistically a smart way to open a paintball field. 2 hours there, 2 hours back to get 3 or 4 man hours. And that's if you just bring one person. I would need to load the truck down with 5 or 6 people and try to get more man hours out of the job. But, we were moving bunkers before we actually had a good structured plan that have never been played before. And we didn't know exactly how things would play out. But once we kind of got a structured plan, it got much better for us. So thank you to everyone who kind of helped us out early on in those days. That was quite the load management there. So again, thank you to that. So now we have a field and we have a few bunkers put up. I have a outline of what the field should look like. I have a website. I've got some promotion. I've got some things done, and we promote for our very first open play. I'll give you some reference here. Hopefully it's not glaring too bad. I'll try to put the graphic up. I get a drone, put it over the top, and this is the very first game that we played. As you can see, there's like some pretty easy start points. I highlight a creek bed here. Just very simple, right? It was actually really small and needed a little bit more space, and we kind of adjusted those later. But we had 34 people come out the first time. So if you're one of the OGs and the original people that came out and helped or came out and played, thank you. That was a dream come true for a long time. It was 5 years probably since Frontline XP started. So that was a big thing. And I hold that memory close to my heart because it's like, what? A little bit of me is like, what? I'm finally doing what I said I was going to do. I finally have my sandbox. I got a lot of people that I trust around me, and it was really good. So we do Red Creek open play number 1. We do open play number 2. And then I think we go into our next year. Originally, I said, hey, we're bringing the big game back to Utah. That was the whole sticking point of my promotional video. And that's still our intention. I think we've done a pretty good job of laying the groundwork for that. But I actually really needed these open plays to get our belt, get some notches on our belt and some understanding of how we were going to do this in a larger scale. We make that announcement. We don't hold our very first big game right away, which was originally called Battle for the Beehive. We postponed it to next year, and I think that was a good strategic play because we needed, again, that experience of hosting. All the while, I'm pretty much, not running the show by myself. I definitely have other people involved. I think that's one important thing that I want to leave you with is this was a huge operation in terms of the people that volunteered their time, the people that ran out there to build bunkers with me, the people that have put a vest on and ref some games for us. A lot of them somewhat even outside of the paintball world. Don't even have their own gun or anything. They're just there supporting me. And I think you hear that often in other businesses, that you need that support from family and friends. I definitely have that today and on the early beginnings of this. So thank you to everyone that helped us in the beginning. I'm trying to get your names before the end of the show here. So since then, we created something that I'm very proud of, and it's not a one-man show. And I think where we're destined to head is to operate an efficient paintball business that creates enough money to put back into it and continue to grow. Just from our first map to our second map, there was obviously some big improvements, and listening to the people of what they wanted to see. It's been awesome. It's been a awesome growth experience and a great understanding of what it takes to run a field, as well as to connect all the back end dots of the business side. So it's been a success to me. I think we're getting close to a success on the dollars. So I think we'll eventually get there, but obviously thank you all for your support and what you guys have done to get here. So thanks for going all the way out to Red Creek Paintball, Fruitland, Utah, of all places, and supporting our events and our games. We're into season 3 right now. I do foresee this being a long-term ride to where we will eventually do some great things. And my ambition still has a paintball field eventually within city limits, something a little bit more commercial, something that allows us to scale and grow at a bigger exponent, right? Just on a bigger scale. The one thing with Red Creek is it's always been favored to the gun owner. It's for the players, by the players a little bit. And although it's not completely free, it is something that our intentions are to please the gun owner first. We don't turn over a lot of brand new rec players, but for the ones that have come out, that's a huge point to me, because I feel like when I stepped out to create this field, not only did I want to create an awesome sandbox, but I wanted to create new players and new faces. And I know if we're able to move within city limits one day, we'll be able to create even more of those experiences and players as well, and hopefully drive the paintball community in a bigger fashion. But this has been a story of Red Creek Paintball. Our story is still being told today, so if you want to come be a part of that, come support our events. We've got some awesome lineups coming up. If you're interested in helping ever, connect with me, and I'll shoot you the invites. And when we go out there, if you want to get your hands dirty and build something, I'm all for it, because, again, it's a sandbox. It's a lot of fun. So thanks for watching the origin story of Red Creek Paintball. Share this with a friend and say, hey man, we should go check this field out, or hey, we should go support this and his friends and his community, or hey, we should try paintball one day. I don't know. Come check it out. I enjoy telling these stories. I enjoy talking on the podcast. I hope you guys can put up with me just rambling on this single episode, but I think there's going to be some more awesome episodes to come with some really cool guests. By all means, keep mentioning who you want to see on a podcast. That's giving me a good roadmap of who to contact and who to touch. That was not correct. Contact who to reach out to and just get a hold of and get on the podcast. So thank you for watching along this time. Go shop shootersonly.us, get you some merch, get you some stuff to support the paintball community. But by all means, go out and go play some paintball in Utah. That's the best thing you could do out here these days. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
No, I'm not coming. Who you think you are on my property? That sounds like. Oh, look at this! Oh, Joe! I gotta see your face. The world wants to know who created this masterpiece. Ah, it's a beauty. It's a